to the July 31st, 2024, Salt Lake City, I think we're now called the Salt Lake City TAC, Salt Lake City Urban Area TAC meeting. A little name change there. Happy to see all of you on Zoom today. I was gone during April and am excited to be back for today's call. Always enjoy hearing what's going on. In way of introductions, I'm going to read through our role. And then, we'll catch anybody else who's joined at the very end. So when I read your community's name, if you want to unmute and signify your presence, if you have colleagues on the call, you can each do that, or you can introduce for you and your colleagues, however you want to do it. So let's dive right in. Alta. Bluffdale.
Mark Reed, City Manager.
Caitlin Tubbs, Planning Manager.
Awesome. Good morning. Brighton.
Morgan, Long Range Planner.
Hey, good morning, Morgan. Thanks for being here. How about Copperton?
Also Morgan, Long Range Planner.
Okay. We will be, I should probably consider consolidating some of the MSD communities, but we do like to hear all the names read out. So you may be getting a good time here on the minutes, Morgan. From Cottonwood Heights, I am here. My name's Samantha. I'm the senior planner for the city. I'm just going to scroll through here and see if I strong-armed any of my colleagues to join. We've got Mike Johnson, our Community and Economic Development Director. And looks like that's it from Cottonwood Heights this morning. How about Draper?
Todd Taylor, Draper, Planning.
Hey, good morning, Todd. Emigration Canyon.
I guess that would be me again.
Awesome. How about Harriman? Hey, Holiday. And then Morgan, are you representing Kearns and Magna today as well?
Yes, Matt Starley might also be on the call in a little bit. I don't know if he's on the call right now, but he would also be representing those two communities.
Awesome. Great. And then how about Midvale?
Yep, Elizabeth Arnold.
Hey, Elizabeth, thanks for joining. Do we have anybody from Mill Creek today? How about Murray?
David Rogers, Senior Planner for Murray.
Hey, good morning, David, and congrats on your new position.
Thank you.
Okay, how about Riverton? I feel like I think there's some Riverton folks today.
Matt Castle, Engineering.
Awesome. And see Nathan Page from Riverton in the chat, and then we've got Grant from Bluffdale as well. That's a great reminder that if you are signing on, we encourage you to put your name and your community or organization in the chat. And then at the end, I'll also pause if there's anybody that I missed. So thanks so much for that. Okay, how about Salt Lake City?
Joe Taylor, Transportation Planner for Salt Lake City.
Good morning, Joe.
Looks like Becca's here too. I don't know if she wants to introduce herself.
Awesome. Good morning to both of you. How about Salt Lake County?
Helen Peters, Director of Regional Planning and Transportation.
And Shane Ellis, Associate Director for Public Works Engineering.
Good morning. Good morning to both of you. Sandy.
Jake Warner, Long Range Planning Manager.
Brittany Ward, Transportation Engineer.
Awesome. Good morning. South Jordan.
Dustin Lewis, City Manager.
Thank you. How about South Salt Lake City? Did I already do South Salt Lake City?
No, you haven't. This is Carl, mobility planner for South Salt Lake, and we may have somebody from community development joining later, but I don't see anyone right now.
Awesome. Thank you, Carl. I panicked for a minute with the South in South Jordan and the South in South Salt Lake City, so appreciate you.
Mm-hmm.
And then Taylorsville. How about West Jordan?
Yep. Good morning, Samantha. Scott Langford. I'm the development director here for West Jordan.
Hey, Scott. Good to see you. And West Valley City.
Good morning, Steve Pastrick here, Community Development Director.
Hey, Steve. Thanks so much for joining. And then we've got White City.
Morgan Julian again with White City Long Range Planner.
Awesome. Thanks, Morgan. And then I'm going to go through a couple organizations and then I'll open it up. Do we have anybody on today's call from UDOT? How about UTA?
Olivia Vance with UTA Strategic Planning.
Hey, good morning. Thanks so much for joining.
Michelle Larson from UTA.
Hey, Michelle. What about federal highways? Okay, and then I know we have some WFRC folks on here. I'll leave it up to you, Jory, maybe if you want to introduce your team or you want each person to unmute, that's you.
I'll run through the list and I think I got everybody pulled together here. So Jory Donner, I'll go through the long range planning group first. We have Hugh Van Wagenen, Lauren Victor, and Che Mosqueda. Jordan Chandler, you get all of her emails and calendar invites. She keeps this meeting organized. Our local communities, Madison, or part of our community economic development group, we got Madison, Village, Meg Townsend, Matt Ryan, Marshall White, part of our analytics group, Sarah Lawless, and then Andrew Gruber, director, and Ted Knowlton, deputy director. I think that's all from WFRC.
Nice, a good showing as always. Okay, then a few additional groups. Do we have anybody from Jordan School District today? How about Envision Utah? I know, and then Avenue Consultants is next. I know we've got Andrew from Avenue Consultants. He signed on in the chat. Anybody else? WCG? Bike Utah?
Chris Wiltsey with Bike Utah.
Hey, Chris. Thanks so much for being here. And then SOMIS. Okay, is there anybody that I missed? I'm sure there was. If you would like to unmute and introduce yourself, or if you want to put your name and organization in the chat, that works too, just so we make sure we mark you down as being here today.
Samantha, this is Brent Crowther with Kimley Horn.
Hey, Brent, thanks so much for introducing yourself. We look forward to having you on our agenda later on. Okay, great. Well, open invite to keep adding your names to the chat as you sign on. Let's go ahead and move into our first action item, item 1A. That's approval of the April 17th, 2024 minutes. So I'll go ahead and look for a motion for approval.
Matt Castle, Riverton, make a motion to approve.
Thank you. We've got a motion from Matt Castle. Do we have a second?
Sure, I'll second that.
Thanks, Scott. Second from Scott Langford. And then I'm just going to do it a little bit differently since it's hard on a Zoom call. I'll just say opposed if any. None opposed, motion stands as approved. Thank you for that. Before we launch into our local community highlight, I wanted to briefly touch on our next meeting. So we'll be meeting on September 11th. And kind of newly as of last year, we've wanted to do that September meeting in person. judging from the sort of interest poll we took at the beginning of the year, it seems like folks do enjoy having an opportunity for an in-person gathering, and I think that's great. So I wanted to just open it up and see, is anybody here from a community or an organization that would be interested and willing to host that group in September?
How many people?
Oh, sorry. I was gonna say, I'm not hearing anybody, and then you came in and saved me, Brittany. That's a good question. I'm not sure if one of the WFRC staff members knows like a rough count from what we have on these.
We get about 40 to 50. We're at 47 people on right now. So probably something similar when we had it last year in West Jordan. I think we had a very similar turnout. So
Okay, we should have space for that size of group here at Public Works.
That would be awesome. I'll reach out to you, Brittany, offline and just make sure that works for you. But we would love to come to Sandy and see that facility if you'd be willing.
Yeah, sounds great.
Okay, awesome. That's fantastic. So with that sort of housekeeping section of the agenda taken care of, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Joe Taylor from Salt Lake City. Joe's going to share with us a local community highlight about some of the work being done there. We've got about from now until, let's say, like 9:20 or so, 9:25, and then we'll have a little bit of time for questions as well. So thanks for being here, Joe.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I will try and fly through it. Let's see. Is that PowerPoint coming up for everybody?
Yep, we see it.
Sweet. Okay. So Salt Lake City Transportation just recently updated our transportation master plan, or what we're calling a citywide transportation plan. Our previously adopted plan on the books was from 1996. It's a good plan, but it is a little bit dated. So we went ahead and did an update, and I will just go through that real quick. And then if anybody has any questions, we can try and get them answered. So this is just kind of a look at the process we went through. It was about a 2-year thing, while waiting up to get adopted was even longer than that. But the first phase was very much, engaging with our citizenry about what they wanted to see in the transportation system. This is rooted in what people said they valued, both in the city at large and in our right-of-way system. It is not at all a list of infrastructure projects. It has a few ideas for policies, well, a lot of ideas for policies and plans, a few ideas for maybe actual infrastructure projects. Normally, these master plans are basically like go A through Z of construction work, and you'll be done with the plan. This is a policy vision for the city for hopefully the next 20 years. So this is just basically the table of contents of the document. It's the vision, and then a brief section on getting around Salt Lake City, which is just sort of the state of the practice, what's safe, what isn't, how people are getting around, what they're doing today. Community engagement, a lot of the work for this was community engagement, so it details what we did there, and I will go through a lot of that because I think we did some stuff that was really cool and worked really well. And then the values that were espoused by the community, and then how we translated those values into what we're calling key moves, which are sort of the 8 big policy thrusts of the document. I'll touch on each of those briefly. And then there is a section in the back of the document that I won't get into because it's basically just a big spreadsheet of do this, do that, and then you can achieve the vision. So this is the vision. I'm not gonna read it to you, but I will pause so that you can read it should you like. Take a sip of my coffee. And if you're good there, we'll roll along. And if you missed it, I'll put a link in and you can look at all the whole plan and all of this stuff. So, like I said, the getting around Salt Lake City section is basically just what's safe, what's unsafe, what our mode split looks like. Like I'm sure most or all of your communities, people are mostly driving in Salt Lake City. although we're starting to see some split up, and then just kind of emerging trends and challenges. Things like disruptive technology, ride share scooters, that sort of thing, what the curb allocation currently looks like. Then we get into what the curb allocation might or could look like in the key moves. The community engagement was three main kind of moves. The first was the formation of a community advisory council. These were 9 citizens. They all lived in Salt Lake, but the requirement was live, work, or go to school in Salt Lake. I think they all did 2 of those because everybody actually lived in town. But these 9 folks were paid for their time, I think $32 an hour. And they were with us throughout the whole thing. From forming the larger engagement plan to reviewing the final draft of the plan itself. These folks had, a lot of them had actually pretty heavyweight transportation expertise, but they were brought on for their expertise in the community, in allowing us access to their own networks and demographics that we don't or maybe hadn't had access to as city staff. First phase happened right at the height of the pandemic, and so we didn't get to do all the cool stuff that we wanted to of broader public engagement. That was to sort of suss out what people valued in the transportation system. And so we actually shifted this to an online survey, and then we went to a whole bunch of pop-up vaccine clinics on the west side of town. That turned out to be really great. I mean, not great because everybody's freaking out about the pandemic, but folks had to sit there for 15 minutes anyway. Might as well take our survey. A lot of them did. Showed up to that in English and Spanish. And then I will later on down the presentation outline those values and how we got there. But the second phase of engagement was, once we'd sussed out those values, we came back with what we call big ideas. And these are sort of transportation policies that could, help us espouse those values as we do transportation infrastructure work. So we did a bunch of in-person there, went to West High, went to a couple homeless shelters, a lot of student events all over town. We also had an online exercise that you could do if you wanted to do it from home. Just saying what you wanted to see. And then we also had kind of a mapping exercise where you could point out something you thought was working in town or something you thought was broken in town and let us know why. Got a ton of great responses for that. And then we took those big ideas and formed our key moves. So the values that we got are equity, health and safety, reliable options, affordability, and sustainability. All pretty self-explanatory there. The only kind of caveat is health and safety did not show up among the top, but when we waited for 18 and under, it clearly rose to the top. So we decided, why not include it? We want to, in a 20-year plan, you want to address what young people are interested in. And of course, we're interested in safety as a transportation organization. So these are the 8 key moves. I'll go through them real quick. If you're interested in kind of the nitty gritty, the whole document's online. I'll put that in the chat and you can read as you like. The first key move is authentic and intentional engagement. I think in Salt Lake City, this may be true in your community as well, that we have demographics, parts of the city, folks that we do a real great job of hearing from, responding to, and entertaining. We have also large communities where there's, a trust deficit or a language barrier or any other number of things where we just don't engage with them as well as we could. So we strive to, at everything we do, get a little bit better at that and include folks we haven't included in the past. That came out real clearly in this work, and so we want to continue that as much as we can. Zero traffic deaths. We are a Vision Zero adopted city. This should be a pretty uncontroversial move, but there is, kind of following the path of Vision Zero, some steps to help get us there in the next decade or so. So that came out as a real big thing of concern, and we want to do it. Great networks for active mobility. Just the notion that should you choose to walk, bike, scoot, roll, whatever you like, you don't just have some great facilities in the city, you have a network that can get you from where you are to where you want to be in a way that's safe, comfortable, fun. So just building out that network infrastructure. Transit-friendly neighborhoods, kind of predicated on the notion that our friends at UTA do a fantastic job in providing transit service. And so we want to continue to work as closely with them as we can. And also, just sort of the notion that they run the vehicles, we want to make the spots where you get on and off their vehicles as welcoming, convenient, safe, beautiful as we possibly can, so that your whole transit experience is a good one. Healing the East-West divide. It was, if you've spent much time in Salt Lake City, it's very clear that the West is physically divided from the East by an interstate freeway and heavy freight rail. And often, if you're trying to come from one side to the other, that train arm will come down and stop you from being able to do so. This came out as clearly the biggest transportation problem in the city, the single biggest issue. So while we don't suggest any specific strategy, we do lay out a bunch of strategies that could be used to address it. And basically just say that it is incumbent on us as transportation professionals to solve this transportation created problem. Low emissions mobility options, this is just about kind of building a real fine-grained network of all kinds of on-the-ground solutions to make low emissions, no emissions mobility options easier. That includes our active transportation network and our transit-friendly stuff, but also just managing the curb so that you have the right mix of vehicles, managing parking so that you're not bouncing from parking spot to parking spot when you don't need to be, making sure that things like electrical vehicle charging are considered, that sort of thing. And places for people, just the recognition that the huge streets in Salt Lake City are our single biggest asset, and we want the highest and best value in that asset, which may or may not be the movement of single occupancy vehicles. So we want to make sure that we have, a policy foundation to allow for other uses so that our streets are a great way to get around, but they're also a really great place to be. That means being safe, and it means maximizing our street space. And then operationalizing complete streets. I think, this group and myself kind of will have a notion of complete streets, which is just sort of it's complete if it has space for all modes. This is that, but more than that, it's making sure that when we do a transportation infrastructure project, that every internal and external organization that has a say or needs to have a say, may be able to bring funding or may be able to bring a consideration to that project, has ample and on-time space to do so. We want to make sure that we're talking to our forestry people when we need to talk to our forestry people, utilities people when we need to talk to our utilities people, that sort of thing. I think that this is probably a struggle in every civic organization. I know that it is a big struggle in Salt Lake City. So we just want to make sure that we are doing as good a job and being as inclusive while still maintaining a good project schedule as we can. I will now put a link to the whole thing and the landing page in the chat, but there's my email. And if you have any questions, feel free and I'll do my best.
Thanks so much, Joe. That was both a very impressive planning effort and a very impressive overview of it. You crushed it. So appreciate you sharing with us. Does anybody on the call have questions for Joe about this project?
I do. Joe, so these lay out, goals, objectives, kind of measuring sticks. How do you see these being used in the next big transportation study in the city? Like how does the nexus happen?
Yeah, so the end of the document is, Ted, is that spreadsheet that really goes through, what we want to do to achieve this. I think our first major move, one that I'm really excited about, is we're going to employ a research fellow. They're going to work for a nonprofit, but they're going to sit with us for the next year. And their whole job is basically to just go through all of our city code and identify all the roadblocks citywide in what we might need to look at to implement this. So I think that's going to provide us a really clear roadmap of like, okay, you have this code that's either not up to snuff or perhaps is standing in the way. what do we do about getting that policy corrected so that we can sort of streamline ourselves as we roll into the next, phase of projects?
I think that is going to be something we're going to ask you to come back and present on again, because I'll be really curious to know how that research fellows process goes with just tackling an entire code. That's such a massive undertaking and I think often overlooked. And so very cool to see that you've made that link. What additional questions does the group have? I have one for you, Joe, if I can add. I was curious if there were any results from your community engagement effort that really shocked you, or was it kind of about what you expected people to respond with in terms of their assessment of the transportation system?
I was really shocked at kind of the divide east-west and also the divide in age in what people were interested in and what they wanted to see. I think that it became really clear to me that we have a robust population in Salt Lake City who feels really well served and like things are working really well. And then there's this just like total other side of the coin where like it's not safe. I can't get around reliably. I can't afford to get anywhere. Just sort of like it's broken. And so, I think that those are both valid lived experiences, but it does create a really interesting kind of dichotomy in what you're trying to serve.
Yes, it's challenging to meet that full spectrum there, I'm sure. Awesome. Any additional questions for Joe before we move on? And we do have his email if you have something you want to maybe follow up with afterward.
Yeah, I can put my email in chat, and I'm on vacation right now, so I'm gonna boogie right after this. But feel free to bang my line if you have any questions.
Okay, thanks so much for joining and enjoy the rest of your trip.
Thank you.
All right, let's move forward on to item 3. This is a discussion about the Wasatch Choice Vision and the Regional Transportation Plan. I'll turn it over to you, Jory.
Awesome. Thank you. Get my screen set up, and hopefully everybody, as you said, Samantha, can hear me and see my screen.
I can do both. I can hear you, I can see your screen, so I think you're good to go.
All right, let's go. Keep us on track here. Dory Johnner, Director of Long Range Planning here at WFRC. Seems like just yesterday we brought to you amendment number 1 to the 2023-2050 RTP. Presenting to you amendment number 2 to 2023-2050 RTP. Going to cover the process briefly, high-level overview of the projects, and then ask that you make a recommendation to the Regional Growth Committee for their August 15th meeting. So let's go through the process. Reminder, the Regional Transportation Plan is developed on a 4-year cycle. It has a financial plan and is fiscally constrained. It conforms to applicable controls, goals, and budgets for on-road mobile sources, and it ties to your future land use in the Wasatch Choice Vision. It's divided into phases, each about a decade long, both for identifying when a project's needed and when funding is expected to be available between now and 2050. And the RTP is the starting place for projects to move forward in the prioritization of federal, state, and local funds. So periodically, as you can see here, we have 2 of them now. Adjustments are needed during the planning cycle for things like if funding became available, changes in need or priority, modifications to land uses, outcomes of environmental analysis or other studies, or updates to timelines on developments of projects. So the amendment process maintains the rigor of the planning process and includes review of the financial constraints, public input, and air quality conformity for level 3 and level 2 projects. The amendment process for each of the 3 amendments are outlined on the right side of this slide and how a project gets approved. Amendment number 2, I should have made mention, only includes level 1 and level 2 type of projects. So the level 1 projects are staff modifications. They're reviewed by both the chair, vice chair of the Regional Growth Committee, and then approved by WFRC's executive director, who is on this call, Andrew Gruber. Level 2 projects are board modifications. They're reviewed by you all, the RGC TACs and RGC, and then approved during the RGC meeting. And then level 3, which we don't have, but they're full amendments. They include a full new air quality conformity memo, 30-day public comment period, and then reviewed by RGC TACs, RGC, and then final approval by the Regional Council. All projects are reviewed by the statewide interagency consultation team, and then the financial constraints are reviewed by Federal Highway. Types of projects that fit within each of these levels. Just as a reminder, if you're thinking about amendments or modifications to our plan, these are where they would line up. So level 1 projects are the staff modifications. They include ownership changes, operation changes for roadways, needs-based phasing changes, all active transportation, our bike plan, and then changes to the Wasatch Choice Vision Centers. Level 2 include collector, minor arterial roadway changes, non-fixed guideway transit, and changes to corridor preservation. And then finally, level 3, the full amendment are for all the really large projects, right? Principal arterials, freeways, fixed guideway transit, for those types of projects. So I'm going to run through a highlight of each of the projects within the amendment, and then run through them in a little bit more detail. So,
Jory.
Yes, Andrew.
Hey, let me just, hi, everybody. Good morning. I want to add one brief process comment about our review and approval of changes to the regional transportation plan. Jory mentioned there's a little bit of different process depending on, level 1, level 2, level 3, depending on how significant the projects are. He mentioned how we take them to you, we take them to our committees. Some of the projects, I technically in my role have the authority to approve. And I just want to say, this probably goes without saying, but but I want to say it anyway. We don't make any changes to any projects in the plan that affect your communities without talking to you and working with you carefully. Our job is not to come in and put something on top of you. Our job is to work in coordination with you. And in fact, usually projects amendments come from you, or often they come from you and your communities. You will bring them up, you will talk about them with us, and we work together on them. So, again, perhaps that goes without saying, but I just wanted to emphasize that collaborative approach that we always take in working with you on anything that affects your communities. Thanks, Jory.
That's a great reminder, Andrew. Appreciate that. I probably zipped by some of that a little quicker than needed, but appreciate it. Thank you. So the level 1 projects, the staff modifications were approved yesterday, finally. I got back from vacation and then noticed that everybody had given me the thumbs up. So there are a total of 15 total projects in this amendment. 9 of them are level 1, 6 are level 2. And these projects, like I made mention, were coordinated with Mayor Dandoy, our chair of Regional Growth Committee, and Commissioner Kamalu, who's the vice chair. And then, as Andrew made mention, he lovingly approved these. So that's a high-level review of the level 1. Here's the level 2. Like I made mention, there's 6 of them. These board modifications are roadway projects from local communities. One from UTA that came from the Front Runner Forward study. So let me jump into the detail real quick. You can see here, level 1, they're spread across the entire region. Most of them down in Salt Lake County, one up in Clearfield. If you have any questions or comments, just hit me up or open up your unmute and ask me any questions if you have any about these projects, but I'm going to run through really quick. So first project here is from Clearfield City. They've received federal funds for a new grade separated pedestrian bridge over 1000 East on State Route 193. The project will provide safer crossings at the South Clearfield Elementary, Clearfield High School students, and provide a connection to the Clearfield Downtown Center. Next project is the Bingham Creek Trail shared use path. We'll update the alignment for the Copperton Active Transportation Master Plan. So you can see that modification there from the old alignment in gray to the modified project in blue. Cottonwood Heights would like to add a new project to the RTP on the East Jordan Canal. The city has began conversations with the canal company. It's a shared use path, would extend the canal trail to the neighboring city in the north and provide access to the Union Park Center. They're requesting the project be included in phase 1 for both need and financial constraint. And the crossing of the I-15 project is in this next project. So we've separated the two projects. Sometimes that helps with funding or prioritization, or just working with communities or the DOT. But this is the crossing here for that same project. So both phase 1 need and financial constraint. State Route 111 or 8400 West in Magna will combine two existing projects in the RTP, making them both a shared use pathway and placing them in phase 1. This project aligns with the Magna Active Transportation Plan. And then the current project on 111 and Cordero Drive is a grade separated crossing in the RTP. This request from the city is to modify the crossing to an at-grade crossing to coincide with a new signal being installed and move it to phase 1 and update the cost. So we've updated all that information here on the slide. And it'll provide improved access to the new Cypress High School. The Provo Reservoir Canal / Welby Jacobs Canal is a shared use path and has been requested by Riverton and UDOT to be moved from phase 2 to phase 1. The project received funds from the Active Transportation Investment Fund as part of the Utah Trails Network. The Bingham City Trail Shared Use Path has been requested by Salt Lake County and UDOT to extend to the western extents and realign the eastern extents of the project. So you can see those modifications there on the west and then extended on the east side, or back other way around. Extended on the western, realign on the eastern. The project also did receive funds from the ATIF, the Active Transportation Investment Fund, as part of the Utah Trails Network. And then the new 1300 West Jordan River Parkway shared use path has been requested by Bluffdale City and UDOT. The project coincides with a new pedestrian bridge crossing the railroad, but is a separate project from that crossing. The project received funds also from the Utah Trails Network, or as part of the Utah Trails Network from the Active Transportation Investment Fund. So that's all of the level 1 projects. Are there any questions or comments about them? Clarifications? Hugh, anything I missed?
I just want to say thank you.
Oh, yes, Mayor Burton, thank you. And welcome. Okay, level 2. So these are the ones that we'll be asking for a motion to recommend to the Regional Growth Committee. So all of these are located in Salt Lake County. After I review them, like I may mention, ask for a recommendation for approval by the Regional Growth Committee. So the first project, this is UTA has identified multiple grade separated crossings from their front runner forward study to increase safety of vehicles, pedestrians, and help with the reliability of front runner. In the amendment number 1, we incorporated, I think, 4 or 5 of these. We want to now, after working with Salt Lake City, recommended that 900 South, just east of I-15, be added in phase 1. We met with Salt Lake City, discussed this crossing, and confirmed the merits and desire of inclusion to the RTP. So as Andrew made mention, requests came from UTA, but we always coordinate with the local communities or vice versa. If a community has a recommendation for a project on a state facility or the transit network, we'll coordinate with UDOT and UTA respectively with those. Second project is 2000 East from Atkin Avenue to 3300 South in Mill Creek. It's an operational project that will include sidewalks, ADA ramps, storm ramps, bus stops, and bike lanes. It's requested to move the project to the fiscally constrained phase 1 from phase 2. Next project, or the next 4 projects are partially funded or fully funded through House Bill 488 and the allocation of the county of the first class highway project funds, and are requested to be included in phase 1. So additional fundings for some of the projects are still being identified. Just so you know, at the end of the legislative session, the bill was passed, and we did not have time to coordinate with the local communities on getting these into Amendment 1, which is why we have these 4 projects in Amendment number 2. So 4100 South Extension is a new project extending west of State Route 111, providing improved connectivity and improvements at the intersection of State Route 111. So we have a project that goes up to this. This would be a project that just extends past. 6800 West is a new collector roadway connecting 5400 South to 6200 South. And it is also in West Valley City's major street plan. Bingham River Road is currently in the RTP with the request to modify the needs-based phasing and fiscally constrained phase to both phase 1. The approved funds will fund the furthest north section, while new development in the south will build the southern section. So the city wants to build from just past where you can see up at the top where it says Bingham Creek. They want to get just past the Mountain View corridor. And then as that area just north of Daybreak develops, they'll require that the pathway be built with the development. The last project, a new operational project, adds 2 lanes on Bangerter Parkway between 150 East and 138 South. It's been requested to be included into the 2023 RTP. Again, it's just an operational type project, and it's a pretty short project, less than a quarter mile. All right, so per our RT amendment process, we prepared a set of technical considerations, similar to the considerations when we developed the plan, and tied directly to the Wasatch Choice Vision goals. So I'm going to briefly run through those with you before asking for the recommendation. So the level 2 projects are subject to these technical considerations. Projects within this amendment provide more and safer connectivity by increasing our active transportation networks, providing more connectivity across barriers like railroads, highways, improving our transit connectivity, and improve access to the Wasatch Choice centers. For vehicle hours of travel and access to opportunities, we're only showing the benefits in phase 1 of the RTP. These numbers show the comparison between our existing RTP and the amendment. Through new connections and increased capacity, we increase access to jobs and education in all 4 communities, although there is a slight increase. And you can see here, project by project, very little VHT change for those, ranges from similar or almost exactly the same to a few percentages for that Bingham River Road. But you can see we look at safety, vehicle hours of travel, connectivity improvements, project readiness, and provide access to urban, town, and job centers. So they're all laid out here. A lot of information on the slide, but want to reiterate to you all that we just don't slide projects into the RTP. They do go through as much or more, in some cases, rigor than our planning process. So with that, Samantha, open up to any questions on the level 2 amendments, and then we can get a motion to take it to the RGC.
Great. Yeah, I appreciate WFRC staff's thorough review of those. It's nice to come to these meetings and know that there's been some careful analysis of these projects, and exciting to see that you accommodate sort of fluctuations between big plan updates for changes that just naturally occur in our communities. So I think we can go ahead and look for a motion from somebody. Jory has kindly provided us with some verbiage on the screen that somebody might use if they so choose to make a motion.
Sure, I can read. No, Jory, thank you. It was a good presentation. I make a motion to recommend that the Regional Growth Committee review and approve the level 2 board modifications for amendment number 2 to the 2023-2050 RTP.
Great, we've got a motion from Scott Langford. Do we have a second?
I'll second it, Grant from Bluffdale.
Thank you so much. And I'm going to do it the same way as our prior motion and just say opposed if any. No opposition voiced. Motion stands as approved, and look forward to seeing hopefully those amendments added to the interactive map and to the plan.
Thanks. Just a quick reminder, August 15th, our Regional Growth Committee meeting. We'll present the level 2 projects and inform them of the level 1, and then ask that they make the formal approval to include them into the RTP. So yeah.
Dory, can I ask and just pause really briefly to maybe we can clarify for any community on the call how they should start the amendment process if they have an RTP amendment they're interested in. We obviously just did a level 1 amendment, or rather 2 level 1 amendments in Cottonwood Heights, and it was a very smooth process. But would you recommend a community just reach out to you or to Hugh? What would you advise?
Yeah, easy. Easiest thing to do is just reach out to us first. If you go to our website, wfrc.org, underneath the RTP, there is an amendment section for our plan, our amendment process. Has all the details documented. I think there's like 20-page document amendment process. We have a form that we like, an application that we like everybody to fill out, but we like to have that conversation first, just kind of to get our head wrapped around what the amendment is, why the amendment is being requested, what it entails. Do we need to bring in other parties, partners or local communities? And yeah, hopefully it's glad to hear, Samantha, that it is painless and easy. But yeah, reach out to myself or anybody on the long range plan team. We're all really familiar with the process.
Thanks so much.
All right. Can we jump in the next item?
I'll just kind of leave it to you to continue through the next couple.
Awesome. Okay. I'm going to open up, do a little modification here. Ted Knowlton, our deputy director, is going to give a little context of the upcoming workshops, and then I'll talk a little bit about who's invited and the meetings. So go ahead, Ted.
Okay, thanks, Jory. All right. Hey, so everybody, I think you know that we work collaboratively, WFRC, UDOT, UTA, cities, counties, on a 4-year basis to update the regional transportation plan. And the regional transportation plan, even though it goes out 30 years, we really aim for that to be a pragmatic document that we have all agreed to where we're going. Both projects that we're going to nurture to get built in the near term, and those that might take 20 or so years. So it's pragmatic, and that's the way it ought to be. Now, right now, there is fervor about thinking big about the future. It's a lot of it is stemming from the Olympics. You probably heard the Olympics announcement. That's a joke. Of course, everybody's heard the Olympics announcement. So a lot of people are excited and thinking about, well, what are the bigger ideas that we might explore together? Now, eventually, the regional transportation plan is going to be a pragmatic document that looks at the future. But I think, so what we're going to do, though, and what I'd like you to enlist you in this process of thinking, for starters, what are the big ideas? What are our aspirations? Our aspirations for what we do with public transportation, with bike and ped improvements, with the form and placement of our roads, with the kinds of places that we create, our city and our town centers. And so this year especially, we're going to collectively be in the mode, not so much of whether these ideas are super realistic, but more, could they potentially work? More in that kind of spirit. And then next year and in the years that come, we'll ask, can we do the actions that would be needed to make those aspirational ideas work, so that then we can then arrive at that pragmatic regional transportation plan. So I really wanted to highlight that that's what we're striving for, especially this year, is what's our aspiration? Okay, and so key process components to get at that, two big things. One, these fall workshops that we're just about to talk about. And then two, we're going to come and visit with any community that would like to. We would love to visit with every community, just to be super clear, and chat about transportation and your city and town centers. So there's those two components, workshops and local meetings. We're not going to talk about the local meetings today, but I wanted you to know about those two big prongs. So with that, let's talk about the fall workshops, where we, and Jory, I can hand it back to you if you want to talk a little bit about the details of the fall workshops, or I can just keep on trucking transportation lingo. Jory. So this is where I'm hoping I wasn't on mute the whole time, or
You weren't on mute.
Okay.
I was on mute, so you didn't hear me shriek at your trucking joke, but I did hear it.
okay. All right. So Jory, jump in anytime, but
All right. Yeah, thanks,
Okay.
Bart. I think Che will cover a little bit of that here on the next item, also 3C. And then we'll ask for your input. But just wanted a quick reminder here of the workshops coming up this fall. Hopefully everybody on this call has received the calendar invite from, not from Jordan's email, from WFRC@WFRC.org. I believe that's the email that it's coming from. If you did not receive it and want to attend that workshop, let Jordan know, or myself, or Ted, or Andrew, or anybody from WFRC. We'll make sure you get on that list. You can see here the 3 workshops set up in Salt Lake County. We have the northern Salt Lake County area, so Salt Lake City, Magna, Immigration Canyon, West Valley, South Salt Lake, and Mill Creek. That is November 4th from 4 to 6. Southwest Salt Lake County, so pretty much from Kearns, Taylorsville, all the way down to Harriman and Bluffdale on October 28th. And then Southeast Salt Lake County, November 18th, from pretty much Murray Holiday down to Draper. And including Alta and Copperton up there in the hills. Again, we invite, here, it's gonna be quick, elected officials, so mayors, county commissioners, county councils, city council members. We invite your planning commissioners. We invite engineer, planner, economic development, city manager. I think that's it. Pretty much everybody. Here's where it gets a little tricky. Sometimes we invite your bosses, right? So you may not be on the list if we invite the planning director or whatever. So if you'd like to be invited, let us know. We will be doing quite a bit of follow-up about a week before, and you'll also there'll be some additional updates to the calendar, including, as you can see here, locations of the meetings. We're working on that this week. Jordan's doing a great job doing that. Excited for it. We get a great turnout, and we'll be asking you to participate and provide input on, as Ted said, centers, transportation, for the future, and looking at more aspirational and visionary. So with that, Che, I will drop it off to you unless there's anything else anybody wants to add, or if there's any questions. All right, Che.
All right, can everybody hear me and see my screen all right? Perfect. So my name is Che Mosqueda. I am a long-range planner at WFRC. I primarily work on roadway projects. but I'm also involved in advanced air mobility, freight, and water conservation projects as well. So today I'm going to be talking to you about strategies testing.
Hey, Shay, looks like we're seeing that you've started screen sharing, but we're not actually seeing your content. It just has the little blurb about that you've started screen sharing.
Let me try and reshare really quick.
Okay, cool, thanks.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, I agree. My thumbs up was I could hear you, not to the screen share, just so you know.
We jumped the gun
There
on
you go.
telling you were good to go. Let's see if it pushes through this time. It's still so far doing the
Yeah, for some reason it's not
Please, if I can share real quick.
Yeah, if you want to share, Jory, for some reason it's pausing my share.
Okay,
I can share my screen, but it'd probably be a far side joke.
we're seeing the 2027 to 2055
Okay.
RTP strategies testing.
Perfect. All right. Yeah, you can head to the next slide. So as I was saying, today we're going to be talking about strategies testing, but first we're going to go through the regional transportation plan, including basically the overall process, the schedule, and then we're going to take a deeper dive into our upcoming strategies testing. We're going to go over how we test, why we test, and the reasons for that is to look at why we test different projects, land uses, and the process that we use and what we're thinking about going into this. And go to the next slide. So the regional transportation, as many of you know, sets the long-term regional goals and strategy for our regions for our future transportation systems. The RTP also known as the Regional Transportation Plan, covers all modes of transport, active transportation, roadways, and transit, and their connection to land use. We developed this plan in coordination with local governments, transportation agencies, community organizations, and local stakeholders on a 4-year cycle. Right now, we're currently in the first stage of the 2027 to 2055 RTP. During stage 1, we explore the future testing strategies, engage with stakeholders, and initiate financial phasing and assumptions. During stage 2 in 2025 is where we start drafting our preferred scenario. We review the preferred scenario through different lenses. Stage 3, it lasts about 2 years of our RTP cycle and includes finalizing performance measures and looking at needs-based and fiscally constrained phasing and going through a public comment period and finally getting the plan approved. Go to the next slide. So why do we test and what are we testing? Strategies are different avenues of approach, which look at how to improve our transportation systems. We do it because we have to explore what different options are available and what will best serve our cities and communities at the regional level. Next slide. And then hit it one more time. So not only are we looking at projects that meet technical considerations by 2055, we're also interested in exploring ideas that are more aspirational and visionary. You have to click through a couple times, Jory. Sorry. You can just hit it through all of them. So we're looking at and planning for the future, and we're taking a look at what the potential decisions can be and what the positives and negatives are, and we're exploring active transportation, road, and transit strategies. All right, you can go to the next slide, and then I can click through these. So our focus areas during strategy testing right now are looking at providing different transportation choices, optimizing and enhancing our current transportation systems, and looking at local and regional connectivity. Next slide. So our strategies testing process is as follows. This summer, we're going to be creating our initial, we started creating our initial strategies plan. We're going to run these strategies through the travel demand model and the bike model. And we've been doing, part of this is doing outreach to communities and different transportation agencies. So our partner agencies, UDOT, UTA, et cetera. And then we're going to perform additional modeling iterations and using different strategies as we go through and find out what is working and what isn't working. In fall and winter of 2024, we're going to gather feedback at these fall workshops that Jory and Ted mentioned. We're going to run revised plans through the travel demand model and bike model. We're going to combine strategies and ideas to start forming our preferred scenario. And then finally, in spring of 2025, we're going to complete our draft of our preferred scenario. And then we'll do outreach to local communities, transportation agencies, and other stakeholders. All right, and next slide. So being the roadway manager, I'll go through kind of what Jory and I and Julie have looked at for the roadway strategy. So our roads here in the Wasatch Front are primarily built out, but we have a really good system of highways and local connectivity from the different grid systems across our region. The two main goals that I was thinking about and that we discussed were enhancing highway optimization by reducing VMT and VHT, utilizing different congestion management techniques that were different managed lanes, types of managed lanes studies that were looked at by UDOT.
What is VMT and VHT?
Oh, yes, sorry. So VMT is vehicle miles traveled and VHT is vehicle hours traveled. So reducing those two things basically means less congestion, which is better for us, shorter trips, not as long as in your car, and creates also has an effect on air quality as well. And then the other thing that I really wanted to look at was local connectivity and optimizing local roadway systems. So not only bridging gaps where perhaps there's a highway barrier or a canal barrier or a major arterial barrier, but looking at how we can make those roads easier to travel on and safer as well. And then next slide.
Yeah. So on the transit side, we're looking at what a more extensive fixed guideway network, such as bus rapid transit, streetcar, light rail enhancements, and what an extensive bus network, so higher frequency core routes, might do for our transportation network. So we'll be looking at what having more routes spread throughout the region with higher frequency can do for our transportation network users. And then we'll be looking at the associated land uses and what we might be able to accomplish with that. And then kind of working with our cities and kind of exploring new routes and things like that. It's just a quick kind of high level overview of that.
Hey everybody, since Jay gave himself a new title, I'm going to call myself also the manager of active transportation. Nice to see all of you today. So as many of you know, we've been working on the Beehive Bikeways Initiative vision and implementation plan for a network of high quality in-town trails that connect to Wasatch Choice city and town centers. We started exploring this initiative with you all back in our Wasatch Choice workshops held last fall. Can't believe we're almost a year on. That's when we started. And this spring and summer, we've met with most of you as individual cities, staff and officials to talk about the bikeways, but still have others to sit down with to refine the draft. And the draft, current draft you can see shown on the right of the screen, shows the BI bikeways in yellow as proposed, adjacent to the existing regional trails in green. So for the active transportation scenario in the 2027 RTP, we'll be testing how the BI bikeways change bicycle trips across the region compared to the 2023 regional transportation plan. And we're going to be using the rather new bike model. So this is a new adventure for us to see how we can compare different facilities and what they do to increase trips and where those trips start and end. So we're excited about that.
Where did that picture come from that we're looking at? Where is that?
I believe that is the 9 line in Salt Lake City, recently completed.
Yep, you're right. I see that. Thank you.
Yeah. So just again, FYI, some BI bikeways routes are the same routes as planned in the 2023 regional transportation plan. But for this effort, they're upgraded in terms of the facility safety and comfort. And other routes are new or an upgrade to an existing facility. But testing the scenario gives a better understanding of the impact of connecting our Wasatch Choice centers with high quality bicycle facilities, hopefully enabling more people to travel by bike for more reasons more often. Thanks.
And then you can click through there. Yeah, there's 3 clicks on this. Okay, so looking ahead, we're going to continue to perform multiple iterations on the strategies that we have initially developed as we gather data through the travel demand model and input through local communities and through the fall workshop and our transportation partners. And we will have a draft scenario prepared, or preferred draft scenario prepared in 2025, which will ultimately be what we believe with all the input that we've gathered to be the best they can be for the future of our transportation systems. And this will be needs-based and fiscally constrained phasing in 2026 before the final adoption in spring of 2027. Next slide. So I went over a lot of different things today. We threw some stuff at you guys, and there's a lot to consider when we're looking at these different scenarios, and we want to hear your thoughts and feedback. And when we're thinking about testing, it's, you know, regional systems or it's an individual project. You want to have these different systems in the back of your mind. So I want to open it up for a discussion and see if anybody has any questions or concerns. Yeah.
Che, one thing to add before I think Becca has her hand up.
Yes.
We're getting close on time, so I think we have a quick discussion, but we will follow up in our follow-up email from Jordan, a link to a Google form if you have ideas and questions and thoughts. We'll take those there also, or just email us. But Becca?
Yeah, thank you. In Salt Lake City, we've started talking a little bit about travel time parity. That is one of the reasons that people choose particular modes for travel is because it's faster, faster, more convenient, easier. Not very many people as a whole who choose a mode for altruistic reasons, like, air quality or environmental or climate change or, health even. People usually choose things because it's faster and easier. So, I believe that there has been feedback that the reason that people don't take transit in UTA's, quite honestly, award-winning transit service is because it takes longer, sometimes 3 or 4 times longer than it would to drive. So I'm wondering if travel time parity is something that is part of the modeling and what WFRC would think about travel time parity as being one of the kind of the goals of the RTP.
I will let Jory take that answer. And it looks like Ted has something as well.
Go ahead, Ted.
Well, Becca, that is a great point, and I totally agree with you. One of the things that we've been thinking about is very similar, but if we measure the number of destinations that you can get to on average by car, and then compare that, what's the ratio of that versus the number of destinations that you can get to on average by transit. Similar concept, but that destination accessibility ratio is something that we've talked about focusing on and thinking about. And we would not, just to be clear, we would not aim to make the roadway accessibility worse, but we would try to make the transit accessibility better, but to think about how we can improve that ratio. So I'd love your thoughts on that, but it's essentially the same concept and something we've talked about doing.
Thanks everybody for the feedback on this item. In the interest of time and just making sure we cover the rest on the agenda, I think we need to go ahead and move forward. But Che, maybe you could drop your email in the chat if people have additional discussion items, and it sounds like you will be sending out a Google form to request additional input.
Yes, yeah, we will, and I will make sure to drop my email in the chat, and just we'll have that Google form, and then if you have any other specific questions, please feel free to reach out.
Hey, one thing, Samantha, as everybody's looking at that Google form or thinking about, transportation or land use, think about, what does your community want? What does it need? What kind of projects are you interested in testing? What big ideas do you have that may be rooted in a little bit of reality, or you'd like to explore more, or, and then does, the future land use match with your transportation needs and wants? So we're always looking to make those ties, but yeah, kind of keep those things in your back of your mind when you're thinking about reaching out or coming out to the workshops this fall.
Okay, let's go ahead and turn it over to Meg to talk about some of the planning technical assistance items. We are running just a little bit behind. I want to make sure we leave plenty of time to hear from Brent on the comprehensive safety action plan. So Meg, I don't want to rush you too much, but if you can give us like a high level overview of these items, that would be great.
Sure, thank you very much. You're seeing that screen okay? All right, so I will cruise through this largely because a lot of you are really familiar with these programs I'm going to talk about, which is fantastic. We've seen your communities come for planning assistance year over year. So I'll say that and then I'll caveat, if you're less familiar and I do go through this too quickly, please reach out. We're happy to meet with anybody about these things and whether they apply to you and what's eligible and all of that. So first, I'm going to touch on transportation and land use connection. And then we'll go to stationary plan. So the Transportation and Land Use Connection Program is our core annual planning technical assistance program. This is where you can find assistance for plans, studies, policies, and ordinances, and other implementation strategies. So you can get a little bit creative. All of this is to implement the Wasatch Choice vision and to focus on your community's goals. So this is where we really dive into the local, all about your community, and you're in the driver's seat for these projects. This program is a partnership with UDOT, UTA, Salt Lake County, and the Wasatch Regional Council. It's a year over year. This follows our annual funding cycle with our other WFRC programs, opportunities for funding. So next meeting, we're actually going to make a formal call for applications to all of those programs. A little refresher of what we funded this year. In 2024, we funded just under $2 million in project funds. 11 projects, 5 in Salt Lake County, 5 in the Ogden urban area, and then 1 project outside of our urban areas. In September, we'll have a letter of intent for next year. So coming up already, we have another application round. And so I just want to get maybe ideas flowing, a little inspiration for how you might get creative this year. A couple of ideas. I have a little inspirational pic of our Olympic Plaza right outside the WFRC offices. The Olympics has already been mentioned in this meeting. Maybe you don't have Olympic facilities in your community, maybe you do. But it's kind of an exciting time to think of, where does my community want to be in 10 years and how can we lay the groundwork now to get there? There's all kinds of opportunities, right? And we're welcoming the world. So maybe planning, maybe a little bit of a fun planning exercise for your community, and TLC could help you think through that. Also, ordinance work scores very well within the Transportation and Land Use Connection Program because it's that nearness to implementation. Right now, we're helping Ogden do a citywide code update, which is going to be huge for their city. It's called Zone Ogden, calling it a unified development ordinance. Really exciting work, diving very deeply into the details. So you can really think high level visioning, you can think really detailed ordinance work. All of those things fall into the TLC program. Couple other ideas. Hugh talked about Beehive Bikeways work, maybe within those conversations that some of your cities have been having with WFRC staff, you've uncovered a need to look a little more closely at a planned facility and make sure that it's, the route is feasible and you're working with your neighboring communities. TLC can help you do that. We have a street connectivity guide. We have a parking ordinance, parking modernization guidebook for modernizing your parking and looking at your parking standards and the parking you have available in your communities and in your centers, and if those ordinances are serving you well or not. All of those things we can address together. And then we also have a great streets framework that I believe has been presented a little bit to this group, but looking at the context of your centers and whether or not those roadway facilities through those centers are context sensitive, we can take a look at that great streets framework and work with that with your city. So I'm just throwing out ideas that maybe you haven't thought of. The core planning work that you consider TLC for year after year is very much eligible as well. We have a really great map. You can go explore it within your community, especially if you're a little newer, see what we funded in your community over the last 10 years. You can look at other projects. When projects are completed, we link the plan there, and there's some other data available if you click on those projects. So explore that map. Get ideas flowing now, and when that fall for letters of intent comes out, you'll be ready. Let me just pause there. Any questions on TLC? Okay, you guys are all pros with this one. All right. I'll keep cruising. If you have questions come up, we can address them. So station area planning, we've talked about this a lot too. In 2022, there was state legislation requiring cities with a fixed rail or BRT station, or within a half mile of a fixed rail station or a quarter mile of a BRT station to do these station area plans. So this is a heavy lift in Salt Lake County because that's where many of our transit stations are. This is all under, it was, this legislation came out of initiative to increase our housing availability and affordability in our state. And so there are goals, the first of which is increase availability and affordability of housing. There's also an environmental goal, access to opportunities, and increasing transportation choices and connections. So it really fits right along with this Wasatch Choice work. And it has a little bit of a deadline, which is approaching. So we're now in the middle of 2024. And at the end of 2025, each community with this obligation needs to have up to 4. And then let's talk if you have more than 4 and you want to better understand that requirement. But up to 4 of these might be due in 2025. Here's a quick refresher of those station area plan components. It needs to be a vision, needs to have a map. It's got to have a 5-year implementation plan, which is really where we're getting into the weeds with these statement talking about how those 4 objectives are met, and it has to come with public stakeholder engagement. I will say that every single one of your communities that has an obligation in this area has begun. So if it's not you working on this, someone is, but that doesn't mean there isn't a lot of work yet to do. And we have technical assistance to help you do that. So with this legislation, we cooked up $5 million with the Governor's Office of Economic Opportunity, shared with the Mountain Land Association of Governments to spend on this work, and we're spending it. And so we funded 22 applications. This is our little progress chart for how these station areas are moving through the process, and it's going really well. We've certified 24. We have 4 in the hopper to consider in August. And we're working on almost 50 of these right now actively with your city. So we're doing a lot of work, still a lot to be done, as you can see. If you have any concerns about where your city is at with that, we're happy to chat. Quick little shout out, I won't go into this project, but we recently certified a plan for West Jordan and Midvale together. There you are, Mayor. We've certified a lot of great work. We've done a lot of great work, and I'm really just happy to see how all this work is going. Honestly, we're having a blast working with you on this. Okay. Now what I would like to do is highlight the fact that we have this station area plan map. And it is showing what we understand to be the status of every single station. And so time permitting, and maybe time isn't permitting, but if you're at your computers, which I suppose everybody is, I would love to see everyone pull up this map. Maybe we won't spend too much time now, but pull this map up. Oops, different map. And poke around. Go to your city and double check these statuses. Make sure that we have it correct. Like right now, I'm hovering over Murray North that has been submitted and is under review for certification. You can click on either side of the station area, and this is going to go slowly because that's the way that things go when you're sharing screen, I guess. And you can see if there are different statuses in your neighboring community than in yours. Poke through this map. If we have anything wrong, we want to have it right on this map, especially because it's crunch time now. We have 1.5 years, and we want to make sure that we're getting you the right kind of assistance. So this is I will just drop a link in the chat. It's also accessible via our website. Please go through here and tell us if we have it wrong. Or if you're like, hey, I just noticed my city has a lot of work to do. Can I talk with you about technical assistance? We can do that too. Okay. And of course, if you need more information, reach out. Lots of technical assistance still available, but we are burning through those funds.
Thanks so much, Meg. And it looks like Jordan put that station area planning map link in the chat. So encourage everybody to pull that up. And like Meg said, just verify the information shown for your community. To just keep us moving right up here until the end, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Brent Crowther with Kimley Horn. Brent, take us through the comprehensive safety action plan. I honestly just need like 30 seconds to a minute right at the end to wrap things up, but the rest of the time is yours.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Okay, I'll do the classic. Are you seeing my screen okay?
Yes, we're hearing you and we're seeing your
Okay.
screen.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Opportunity to present an overview of what we recently completed for WFRC, the Comprehensive Safety Action Plan. Many of you on this call have been in workshops with us over the past year or so are familiar with a lot of the background. For those who are not, we completed the plan under funding from the Wasatch or from Federal Highway Administration through the what they call the Safe Streets and Roads program. Established $5 billion, about $1 billion each year over the last 22 and 23. You can see there the stats on how many projects have been funded. The 2024 projects are currently being evaluated. The last application for planning is due in August 29th, 2024. With this particular project that WFRC received funding for, the primary purpose here succinctly, a plan to provide local governments a means to make strategic roadway safety improvements. The plan is compliant with all the SS4A requirements that establish eligibility for local jurisdictions then to apply for implementation funding. And there are several jurisdictions that have applied for implementation funding based on the safety action plan that was completed earlier this year. The plan is available at WFRC's website under programs. Then you navigate down to the Comprehensive Safety Action Plan. This is a screenshot of what that Adobe Reader looks like. The plan does include nine elements, 9 chapters that are required by the SS4A program, highlighted here. What I'd like to do now is just briefly review how to find the results and how to access the plan information. Because of the large number of jurisdictions within the WFRC area, we did divide the region into 11 geographic focus areas and completed separate analyses for each of the 11 geographies as outlined here. The safety analysis followed this overall process. First, how do we compare with the emphasis areas identified in the Utah Strategic Highway Safety Plan? And then we launched into this historical crash analysis that I'll briefly review. When we look at that first, how do we compare with the emphasis areas in the Strategic Highway Safety Plan? Highlighted here are the top 3 emphasis area categories for which, based on the frequency of crashes associated with those categories. So you can see here within almost all of the geographic focus areas here at the top within the 11, the number 1 and number 2 are intersections and roadway departure and speed related. And then we have a couple of the geographic focus areas where pedestrians pop into the number 2, specifically Central Weber County, which includes Ogden and Salt Lake City. When we get into the safety analysis itself, we looked at first historical crashes, where have crashes occurred on segments over the past 5 years, and then we screened those to identify where have crashes occurred with more frequency than we would expect when we adjust for traffic volume, functional classification, et cetera. We also used the US RAP data set maintained by UDOT and the University of Utah to identify risk factors, and then loaded that into what we're calling our composite safety network. Here is a map screenshot. If you navigate to WFRC's website, you'll see the same map that shows the results of that safety analysis. We identify results by state routes in orange, federal aid routes in blue, and local routes in the green. And then we have identified intersections that also are experiencing higher frequency of crashes than we would expect. For each of these, we then identified what we're calling project case study locations that we then advanced to example projects of what could be done to improve safety. We recognize we aren't comprehensive in addressing all safety needs throughout the entire WFRC region, but we did identify at least 3 case study locations for each jurisdiction within the planning area. This is an example of those projects for Sandy City. And these are available. Again, you can go to the project website and click on these blue links, and that will pull up within that jurisdiction the project name, and it'll point you to the appendix within the report where you can find more detail about that project. This is a screenshot of what that appendix looks like. We have a separate appendix for each of the geographic focus areas. This is an example of what those case study project information sheets look like. This particular one is from the Layton area. We've identified the location, the segments, and then additional data regarding what the project description is, what the recommendations and potential countermeasures that could be considered. Those countermeasures all draw from the Federal Highway Administration proven safety countermeasures that are shown to be effective in reducing the frequency of fatalities and serious injuries. This is a list here of those 28 proven safety countermeasures that form the baseline of most of our recommendations. Lastly, the region adopted a commitment to reduce fatalities and serious injuries by 50% by the year 2040, which equates to about a 2.5% reduction each year through 2050. And that was adopted by Regional Council in April of 2024. So with that, again, you can access the plan on WFRC's website. And if you have more details and information, I'd be happy to dig in more.
Thank you so much, Brent. I put that link in the chat for anyone who wants to pull that up and explore. We've got a little bit of time left for any questions before we wrap up. Ted, it looks like you may have an item.
Want to do a quick writer on Brent's great presentation. One, if your community wants to apply for physical improvements that and the funding for that happens to come through WFRC, your consistency or willingness to advance this safety action plan is a really important consideration that we would take into account in making those decisions. And so please, apply for construction improvements to address that. And then if you want to work on it on the planning side and you want to, let's say you want to take a new look at your transportation master plan with a safety lens, and you want to bring things from the safety action plan, but perhaps even go beyond that, or think about how you want to use countermeasures or what have you, that's a completely eligible activity, and we would love to see those applications. So that's it for me, Samantha.
Great, thank you so much. I'm sure we can reach out to you, Brent, if we have additional questions, or to you, Ted, if we have questions about which applications would score more highly with that CSAP tie-in.
Samantha?
Yes, go ahead, Kip.
Hi, this is Kip Billings. Just wanted to add a little bit to what Ted was suggesting, that we want all of our partners to look at this safety action plan, not just in the light of going after Safe Streets for All grants, that this is a resource that you can use for all of your projects. There will probably be many more opportunities to implement these safety strategies through our existing or through our traditional funding sources. So we encourage everyone to use this resource in all of their planning efforts.
Great addition there, Kip. Thank you for that. Wonderful. Well, let's go ahead and wrap up our final little bit of the meeting. Just a kind of a reminder on some action items we discussed today. So make sure you've received the fall workshop invites that would have come from the WFRC team. That should be on your calendar for October or November. And if you don't have it on there, you can reach out to their staff for that. Keep an eye out for the RTP scenario input form that we discussed, and then be considering potential TLC program and station area planning projects. And we'll plan to see hopefully all of you in person on our September 11th meeting. It sounds like we'll be heading to Sandy for that. So thank you to Sandy for willingness to host, I'll coordinate with you offline about the logistics. And with that, let's go ahead and adjourn. Thanks, everybody.